Okay, folks, I have posted this page on Google Classroom. This last video is to go over the factors that affect supply. And I posted these non-price determinants on Google Classroom to help you to just get a better understanding of each of them. Remember, I said that if you remember hashtag STEP, STEP, through giant cactus, because we live in Texas, then you will remember the non-price determinants that affect supply. So I also posted this page that I'm going to go over with you today just to review the non-price determinants and how it affects supply. If supply goes up or down, shifts to the right or to the left, increases or decreases. And so I'm going to go through these individually with you right now. So the very first non-price determinant, the hashtag number of sellers, is basically just that if there are more businesses in the market selling or providing that good to the market, then the supply will go up and it'll shift to the right. Let's say, for example, in a recession, or right now, for example, that there are businesses that are closing down, or that maybe are just have laid their workers off. They're not providing as much good to the market. So if we have less sellers, less businesses, then supply will go down and it will shift to the left. Remember, supply is the amount of goods and services that we provide to the market at each and every price, that we are able and willing to sell or to offer up for sale at prices that prevail in the market. The second non-price determinant is a subsidy. A subsidy is basically like free money that is given to businesses, given by the government. And so essentially, when sometimes the government wants to encourage some sort of economic activity, and subsidies is an incentive, a way of doing that. A subsidy is basically just a payment to an individual or to a business or to any other group so that they can encourage that type of economic activity, like I said. Under the Barack Obama administration, Barack Obama would give subsidies to businesses that were going green, that were producing more energy efficient. So if you could provide proof that you were maybe had gone solar, installed solar panels, and so that your business can produce more efficiently, then he would give you essentially extra money for, to continue that economic activity. So remember that in production, and just to backtrack a little bit, in production there are 4 factors of production. There's land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. And so when you have more money as a producer, then you can buy more of these resources to increase your production. So if you have more money, then you're going to produce more. You have less money, you produce less. More subsidies, or if you are receiving subsidies, the supply would go up and it would shift to the right, because you'll be able to produce more by buying more with that extra revenue. If you have less subsidies, or if your subsidies get taken away, then supply will go down and it'll shift to the left. Taxes is a little bit opposite than subsidies. This is money that businesses pay to the government. And so essentially, if we have low taxes, we don't have to pay as much as a business. We don't pay as much to the government, which means that then we have more money to produce and to increase our supply of whatever good or service that we're producing. Or if you have, this is when you have tax cuts, so then supply would increase and shift to the right. A lot of Donald Trump's economic policies are giving tax cuts to businesses so that they can produce more, just more openly, more just with, with less government regulation too. I'll get to government regulation a little bit later. But if they have more money to produce, then they can produce just more, and then essentially it will trickle down into our economy and help boost our economy. So a lot of Republicans on when we talk about the political side of it all, a lot of Republicans tend to advocate for tax cuts, and then a lot of Democrats tend to advocate for higher taxes so that they can use that extra revenue for social programs like welfare and SNAP and things like that. So in any case, if you have lower taxes that you have to pay to the government, you have more money to spend in a business, for example, then you can buy more resources, you can supply more, and it'll shift to the right. If you have very high taxes, that means that you're having to pay the government even more money, and so you don't have as much money to buy resources, and so then your supply will go down and it'll shift to the left. Expectations are true of the expectation of price with consumers. Again, profit motive. This is where profit motive comes into play. And if you expect for prices to go down in the future, I know that people are not going to pay as much for my pencils next week because school is going to be over, whatever. The school year is going to be, over. So people are not going to be in the market for pencils. They're not going to pay as much. So then I'm not going to supply. If I know that prices are going to go down next week, I'm going to want to sell as much as I can right now because I know that people aren't going to be paying as much later, and I'm not going to be able to make as much of a profit. So if I expect for prices to go down in the future, as a producer, I'm going to sell as much as I can right now. So supply will go up and it would shift to the right. If I expect that prices are going to go up in the future, I know that next week people are going to be paying double for my pencils. Well, guess what? I'm not going to put out as much on the shelf for sale right now. I'm going to wait until next week, and then I'm going to sell my pencils at a higher price because then I'll make a better profit. So when you expect prices are going to go up later, well, my supply is going to go down. I'm not going to put out as much on the shelf because I'm going to want to make a higher profit later, and it's going to cause for the supply shift to the left, the supply curve to shift to the left. Productivity has to do with the happiness, the health, the motivation of your workers, also whether people are trained, if they are well trained or just not trained, right? And so remember when we did the widgets and whatsits, and we talked about the productivity of the human capital of your group and how well you all were working. If you have happy, healthy, motivated workers, well-trained workers, then they're going to supply more with the same amount of resources. And so supply will go up and it'll shift to the right. Let's say you have unhappy, unhealthy, unmotivated workers. Well, then supply is going to go down and it's going to shift to the left.